We'll begin by recognizing our posture, making adjustments so that we feel good. So any kind of little fidgeting at the beginning, I think, is helpful to really refine what will help us regarding posture. You might begin by noticing how your feet are arranged, and if there's just a little bit more comfortable way that they could be situated. And feeling into the hips and legs and softening the base. And with the attention in the lower abdomen, if that feels right, maybe noticing the breath, moving the belly, moving the low back. And just seeing if it's possible to invite a little bit of relaxation into the lower abdomen, into the pelvis, the hip sockets. And just drawing the attention up through the torso, to the shoulders. And again, just seeing if it's possible to let go. Or let be. Feeling into the weight of the arms. It might be a way to support softening the shoulders, just allowing the arms to be heavy and relaxed. And bringing the attention into the right thumb, right index finger, right middle finger, right ring finger, right pinky finger, palm of the hand, back of the right hand. And the left thumb, left index finger, middle finger, left ring finger, and left pinky finger. The palm of the left hand, back of the left hand. And then the two hands at the same time. Warmth, touch points, weight, any sense of circulation, the sort of energy fields of the hands. And we'll shift to the face. And maybe begin to investigate how different sensations are in different parts of the body. So noticing the feeling of the air on the forehead, that sensation. And then see how that compares to the sensation of the tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. What is the difference between those feelings and the sensation of breath coming in and out of the nose? Or the sensation of the jaw muscles? Just as a way to help us stay a little bit more engaged with our experience, do a little bit of a inquiry how these sensations differ from one another. the touch points where the lips join. Sensations of the scalp. The throat. Sensation of breath on the skin of the neck and throat, and the sensation of breath on the inside, the back of the throat. Sensation of the spine, the neck, moving with the breath. And then perhaps opening to the sense of the whole body, sitting, breathing in and breathing out. So if the mind is wandering around in a way that doesn't feel very helpful, we can pull our attention to a small area of the body where we can feel the breath very easily, nostrils or um, the belly, and make a little bit of effort to keep the attention right there. Even can count the breaths. Inhale, exhale, 1. Inhale, exhale, 2. You go to 10. And then you count backwards. And lose track, just begin again. Might see if you can keep the attention on the whole inhale and the shift, and then the whole exhale. In a moment, I'll ring the bell to transition out of the formal practice. So we might take a minute to reflect, perhaps any insights that you had during this period, or something that we're going to be maybe looking at together as a group is this question of how do I know I'm meditating? how do I know I'm being mindful? So if I understand, we do a period of some movement.
We can just take a minute to stretch before you begin your talk,
Okay.
since Emily's not here from.
Okay, that's what I couldn't see. Thank you. Okay. Um, so 3 minutes or so is good.
1 to 2 might be better.
Okay.
A little bit.
All right.
I'm good.
Thank you. Beautiful Center for Mindful Living community for welcoming me here to share in some practice and reflection and community. The question that I dropped in at the end of the meditation, how do I know I'm meditating, has been something that I've been kind of working on myself in my own practice, particularly as I go about my day. Not that I'm asking how do I know I'm meditating, but how do I know I'm mindful in a continuous way? And I think it's a useful question. So when I'm doing an actual seated meditation, I can kind of ask the question, how do I know I'm meditating? And then those qualities or those signposts can be maybe incorporated a little bit more throughout my day. So one of maybe the main ways that I know I'm mindful and meditating is being aware of sensations. And in the meditation, I tried to emphasize really heightening this ability to be aware of our sensations, using that question, what's the difference between the sensations in the forehead and the sensations at the roof of the mouth? To really try to heighten the capacity for knowing what sensations are present. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Another thing that I find if I'm sitting in meditation, I do a lot less of, but when I'm walking around my day, I do a lot of it. And that is what I call representing to myself what's happening in my experience. So it could be a narrative kind of thing, but a lot of the times what's maybe more unpleasant to me is this, I'm kind of repeating the sounds that I'm hearing to myself, like I'm representing to my mind the sounds that I'm hearing. So it's kind of another type of dialogue that, keeps me a little bit separate and a little bit lost. It keeps me distracted. But when I'm sitting in formal meditation, I have more intention, and that's another attribute, I think, more intention to just be very present and to not let that run amok, that tendency to kind of repeat to myself what's happening in my experience, conceptualize it, kind of, represent it. So I don't know, maybe I'm a crazy person, or maybe other people have that experience. Another way that I can tell I'm being mindful is if I'm able to track impermanence in the present moment, if I'm able to hear the sound of a car all the way from the beginning to when I can't hear it anymore. Because again, I think the mind will tend to sort of represent or label. There's a car, and then solidify it as a concept, and then ignore it. And then it becomes as if there's that delusion of things being permanent. There's cars, that's a thing that lasts. Whereas when you're really paying attention to the sound of the car, it expires. And that's our experience moment after moment, in fact, when we kind of unhook from that representing. So when I get to the end of all this, I'll be interested to hear your your ways of knowing that you're being mindful or that you're meditating when you're meditating. That might be useful to hear from everybody. So the next thing I wanted to speak about is kind of what helps us. What are the things that helped us to be more mindful? And having some kind of a daily home practice, independent practice, as well as having a practice with other people. And I think the important thing is, I was thinking about this when I first started learning these things. I would say that I really didn't sit in meditation. I was reading, and Charlotte Jacobbeck, actually, her 2 books, and I read it and I come to something and I would try it out in my day. And then I would see that it was helping. So I would say at that time, my formal practice was very brief, but it was in this method of, hearing the teaching and then trying it out and then seeing the benefit. And so then there was a incentive to keep going. And even though in the beginning for me it was very unpleasant, I could see that it was the right direction to go in, because it was different than what I'd been doing for whatever that was, 40 years. So home practice, but I'm not sure. I guess it does. Yeah, I think it does matter to have a practice where you're sitting by yourself and kind of pushing the envelope, going a little bit longer, a little bit longer. But that's not to say that if you can only manage just a little bit and testing it out and seeing the benefits, I think that really helps to ground our engagement, in our kind of not just taking it as like an intellectual thing, but taking it into our knowledge of how beneficial these practices are. And then I wanted to speak a little bit about retreat practice. Um, the the benefits of a retreat practice, I don't think can be overstated. Because when you go on a retreat, and I would say more than 3 days, say 5 days or longer, you have very few responsibilities. You have very few ways that you can distract yourself. And so you have this vast amount of time to be able to see what the mind is doing, to really be able to observe these habits or defilements or hindrances. So I have a few stories from retreats that I've been on that I think maybe a lot of them are a little bit funny, but I think they also will illustrate how important and useful retreat practice can be. So let's see. So I'll start with this one. So I was on one retreat, I think it was about 10 days. And on this retreat, what I was observing for 10 days, this is all day long practically, was the arising in my mind of problems or self-criticism, difficulty, pain, bad memories, all these things arising in my mind. And with each one, I would meet it, which meant that I would actually let myself feel whatever that struggle was, let my heart break open and watch it expire. And this was many, many occasions arising in the mind of things that I regretted or, problems in my life that I was. Most of the time, I think these things come up, and the last thing we want to do is feel what that feels like, and to have that luxury of time where you can, the luxury of time and also the wisdom that grows that tells us that the best way is to face it and to feel it and to have self-compassion or compassion for others, and then just let it go. And because it will anyway. I mean, you're not letting it go, it's expiring. So we can go along with that in a very free way. So that's not a very funny story. So here's a funny story. So on one retreat, this was when, well, actually, I see this a lot because this is a tendency. I know it's nothing special, but I was really looking at my aversions, and the person that was sitting in front of me in the meditation hall had all these different sweaters that she was wearing, and I couldn't bear them. The colors, they were so terrible to me. And I finally had to move. I had to sit somewhere else. I couldn't take her her colors. But good to notice. And that's something that, obviously, if you got a tendency like that, you're going to see it in its many different forms. On another occasion, this was a relatively long retreat. I think it was 10 days. And so, your mind becomes very settled after 10 days of meditating all day, every day, or just being quiet. So this was towards the end of the retreat. I started hearing this voice that would arise in my head. I'm the greatest in the land. And at first I was like, well, what? Like this, like it felt like it was coming from somewhere else. It kept happening. And then at some point I just had to recognize that was a part of my conditioning. It was sort of a Hollywoodized version of the ego, and how kind of it feels about the world or things, and so now, that can be kind of a reference for me if I'm feeling, very egotistical, that I can say, oh yeah, I'm the greatest in the land. Similar to the self-compassion, I was on a retreat at Bhavana Society, where, to see the craving in the mind, one after another, little tiny ones, big ones, all the many different ways that the mind can want something or not want something. And just to be able to, just watching that, oh my God, not just seeing it, but seeing how it's like constant. This would be very depressing if mindfulness wasn't more powerful. And mindfulness is more powerful as long as we practice it. These things, these difficulties can be met and overcome. I think that's all my retreat stories. I kind of got onto this because I'm I'm hoping I'm making it sound really great, because I have a retreat that I need to promote that's coming up, that will be at Seven Oaks in February. It's 4 nights, and I'll be teaching with a woman, Marjolein Jansen, and she is a student of Gil Fronsdal. If you know his teaching, she's quite good. So the description says it's for caregivers. It's really for anyone that needs kind of a recharge. Okay, so I have a reading, and then we will open it up. This is still on the question of, how do we practice? Really, is the basic question. So this is from, in the Buddha's words, Bhikkhu Bodhi, selection of suttas, where the Buddha is giving us some instructions. Now, this is a little bit gruesome. Some of these suttas are, so that's just a trigger warning, I guess. This is from the Majjhima Nikaya 21, the mind of loving kindness. Monks, there are these 5 courses of speech that others may use when they address you. Their speech may be timely or untimely, true or untrue, gentle or harsh, connected with the good or with harm, spoken with a mind of loving kindness or in a mood of hate. When others address you, their speech may be timely or untimely. When others address you, their speech may be true or untrue. When others address you, their speech may be gentle or harsh. When others address you, their speech may be connected with the good or with harm. When others address you, their speech may be spoken with the mind of loving kindness or in a mood of hate. Herein, monks, you should train thus. our minds will remain unaffected, and we shall utter no bitter words. We shall abide compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, never in a mood of hate. We shall abide, pervading that person, with a mind imbued with loving kindness. And starting with that person, we shall abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train monks. Monks, even if bandits were to sever you savagely limb by limb with a two-handled saw, he who gave rise to a mind of hate toward them would not be carrying out my teaching. Herein, monks, you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected, and we shall utter no bitter words. We shall abide compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, never in a mood of hate. We shall abide pervading them with a mind imbued with loving kindness, and starting with them, we shall abide pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train monks. Monks, if you keep this advice on the simile of the saw constantly in mind, do you see any course of speech, trivial or gross, that you could not endure? No, venerable sir. Therefore, monks, you should keep this advice on the simile of the saw constantly in mind. That will lead to your welfare and happiness for a long time. So, the way I work with this is when I'm having trouble with someone, I say, are they sawing my arms off? No. So I think I can handle whatever's happening and even aspire to practice loving kindness no matter what. So thank you for your kind attention to the Dhamma. And we have some time for question. Very supportive. We come in and all the that person inside us that thinks it's the greatest in the land, kind of will come in and bump up against other people and discover, that this is a really barren way to live in this kind of self-centered desires world, and that there's a much happier way to live, and we're so fortunate to have these teachings that have been preserved. I would say that they seem quite cohesive, unlike some other religions, I think have suffered from fragmentation, and we have this gift of the Buddhist teachings, and they're, the more I study and read and talk about it, the more they seem like one cohesive thing. So there's all these pieces, 7 factors of enlightenment or Four Noble Truths, or it seems like there's all these different things, but as you practice, you start to see how they all hold together. And I think it's worthwhile to learn, the Eightfold Path, and to really become familiar with it in our practice. So, thank you all so much for your very kind attention. This opportunity to pass on these teachings is a great gift to me, and and I'm very grateful to do my best to pass them on. So thank you. And I hope you have a lovely day, and maybe I'll see you around Zoomtown.